a player. The A train was clattering through the tunnel at breakneck speed down the long straight stretch from 125th Street to 59th, tossing everyone around like lettuces in a metal bowl. Tabby had her Arden edition of Hamlet bouncing in her lap and was yellowing her lines with a highlighter. Some months ago, Tabby's acting teacher Andre, in his weekly advice to the players, had suggested that Tabby work on the character in class. He noted that the gloomy Dane was the child of a fembot and a phantom, that he was a man of mystery living in a house of secrets. He thought Tabby would make a stellar Hamlet. As the train pulled into Columbus Circle, she checked her email on her phone. Her agent had sent a casting breakdown for a TV role cop show self-tape due tomorrow. Seeking Biffy Brown, 30, female identifying a hapless and maladapted nerd with an obsession for antique weaponry. It turns out she is a killer out for vengeance. One-day guest star, rear nudity required. Tabby clicked her tongue on her teeth. Who writes these things? She emerged from the station and headed east towards her dentist's, slaloming her way through the waves of pedestrians barreling west like infantry cresting a trench. She was split in two, mumbling rogue and peasant slave under her breath, testing the words in her mouth. She tried to open a door to Hamlet inside herself, but Biffy Brown kept climbing in a window. She looked up and noticed an unusually long line of horse-drawn carriages along Central Park South, and remembered the gossip she had heard somewhere that the buggy drivers were all gigolos, Irish gigolos, and that the buggy business was a front, and that, in fact, all day long the gigolos were receiving messages hand-delivered by couriers that Mrs. So-and-so on Central Park West would like to make an appointment with Seamus, or Lady such-and-such was staying over at the plaza, if Angus could please give a call. As she approached the Simon Bolivar monument, something started niggling at Tabby. A memory darting around just below the surface that had been triggered by the lazy clip-clop of hooves and the frightened help-me eyes of the horses rolling in their sockets. But whatever it was, it silvered away like a minnow in the shadows. Tabby was out of joint these days. Her memory wore a mask, was a phantom and a thief. Ding! Her phone announced a text alert. Carlotta. I can't do this anymore. Tabby froze on the sidewalk. Oh no, here we go. She knew this day would come. She first met Carlotta at the Met 6 months before. Tabby was there on a class assignment. Andre had directed everyone in the class to go to a museum, choose a portrait, and then bring the subject of the portrait to life in a private moment improv the following week. Tabby had chosen Thomas Eakins' The Thinker and planned to portray him privately peeling potatoes in his kitchen, with his cropped hair and hangdog features twisted up in contemplation of some solemn puzzle. Tabby thought The Thinker looked, if you squinted, like she would look as Hamlet. Carlotta, a sculptress, seeking out that particular painting for her own private reasons on that same afternoon, had stumbled upon Tabby deep in an actor's reverie there in Gallery 771. Tabby had sensed Carlotta's entrance into the room, empty except for herself and the Gilded Age aristocrats looming off the walls. She had not looked at Carlotta, but had kept her gaze fixed on the thinker. After a few pregnant moments, Carlotta had muttered almost inaudibly, "That look he has. I know that look." Letting a few beats go by, Tabby had smiled and whispered, "Don't we all?" Then the pair stood side by side for a good 10 minutes, silently swimming in each other's pheromones before turning to each other and, without popping the gossamer bubble they were in with so much as an awkward smile, gliding into the next gallery and the next, and on and out of the museum and into the night. One thing led to another, and for the last 6 months they had been having secret assignations on Tuesday afternoons when Tabby was supposed to be at her Al-Anon meeting. Kinky 19th century sex. The kind the thinker was probably thinking about. Even though Carlotta was a decade and a half older than herself, Tabby had fallen recklessly in love with her. Now, Tabby clutched her phone, intuiting that Carlotta was in one of her stormy moods, and more doom-laden texts would be coming hot on the heels of the first. Carlotta texted in clusters. She was about to lob the next grenade into Tabby's foxhole. Death segmented. Ding! I feel like the other woman in some movie from 1970. Tabby thought about Carlotta's studio, her coffee-stained futon, the lonely stack of paperbacks in the corner. Ding! You say you want to be with me, but then you say you don't want to leave Odile. WTF? Question mark? Odile was Tabby's wife. She was French. They had met through mutual friends and dated for only a few months before getting married a year and a half ago. Odile was patient, restrained, steady, everything Tabby was not, and had a stable career in finance. Odile had rescued Tabby from herself, from the train wreck of her 20s. She had put her back on track. For example, there was that West Village party where Tabby took too much acid and threw herself in the Hudson, and Odile rallied those German tourists to help fish her out. Or the night Tabby drunk punched a bathroom mirror in a bar on Avenue B and ran naked into the street, and Odile led her home bleeding, wrapped in her overcoat through the snow. Or when Odile escorted Tabby, shaking, sweating, fists clenched, to Tabby's first AA meeting. Or when, ding! I am at the end of my rope. If you don't want to leave Odile, fine, but then let me go. Tabby pictured Carlotta as she had seen her last, stranded on a carpet in her desolation in the Tuesday room, the IVF results negative, lying on the carpet. My last egg, Carlotta had said. They had had sad, sad sex. Ding! This is making me crazy. Tabby slapped herself across the face. Ah! The guilt! What about her wife, Odile? What about her pain, the secret, deceitful pain that Odile could feel but never name? Why? Because Tabby administered it in the fog like a sandman, after dark like a vampire, slipping the needle into Odile's sleeping arm like an unhinged orderly in an asylum. Tabby's mind was whirling now. She felt the condominiums on Central Park South collapsing on the edge of her vision. The horses rioting and breaking free of the carriages and running wild. The gigolos running after the horses with flying whips. She never meant to hurt Carlotta, but then she never meant to hurt anyone. Ding! You have to choose, me or Odile. It wasn't that she was a bad person, Tabby told herself. It was just that she lacked courage, moral courage. Yes, she was a coward, but if she considered her own ancient wounds and childhood traumas, she came to the compassionate conclusion that she was a flawed person, yes, but essentially kind, doing her lonely, imperfect best in the cold, cruel world. In any event, the thought of choosing one woman over another paralyzed her. 2 doors stood open in front of her, but to go through one, she'd have to slam shut the other, and Tabby was incapable of shutting a door, any door. She left all the doors wide open in her house of secrets, swinging on their hinges against the windy, empty afternoon. Ding! I think you ate the best person, but what can I do? Ding! R, not 8. Fucking auto spell. I'm done. Tabby wanted to crumple up on the sidewalk and cry, or snatch a dagger from one of the gigolos. She knew they all had daggers tucked in their vest, and carve SHAME into her bicep. Or fuck it, run all the way to the 59th Street Bridge and hurl herself over the rails. Or better yet, whip out the revolver she kept wedged in her jeans. Yeah, right. And do the deed right there in the middle of the bridge. She was wearing a long black coat. The tails would be flapping in the wind when she pulled the trigger. The sun would be crimson. She would look like a man in a painting by Edvard Munch. Fuck, I hate myself, she thought. Then she thought, Hamlet hates himself. This is what it feels like. She texted Carlotta back, Sweetheart, can we please just talk in person? She waited, staring at the screen. The 3 little dots popped up, then quickly disappeared. Sitting in the dentist's waiting room, Tabby erased Carlotta's incriminating texts, then texted Odile that she'd be home by 7. She plucked a glossy brochure off the side table for Dentex, a deluxe tooth whitening system. She thought about how, as a child, she'd been teased mercilessly because of her yellow teeth. She thought about the leather fisherman's cap that her father, who also had yellow teeth, had bought her at a leather shop in Overton Square on a trip to Memphis when she was 9. The cap was the color of margarine, the color of her teeth. She pictured her childhood self holding the margarine-colored cap up to her face to show the match, like people do these days with a tablet of Trident White against a perfect white smile. In that leather shop with her father, there had been black leather pants on racks and black leather chaps and black leather harnesses splayed on the wall, harnesses for humans. And black leather whips and cats and nine tails arrayed in a display case, and black leather masks with zippers. The clerk was wearing black leather short shorts and a black leather vest, no shirt, thigh-high black leather boots, and a leather cap with silver studs. He had seemed to know her father pretty well. Why had her father taken her to such a shop? Who was this man she called father? Why is a father such a man of mystery? Tabby tossed the brochure back on the table. A year and a half ago, she had finally whitened her teeth at the insistence of her agent. Just before her wedding, in fact. Her father had died not long after. "You doing okay, hon?" Helene said as she hooked the vacuum tube onto Tabby's lip. Tabby nodded. The tube flapped against her cheek and snorkeled obscenely as it sucked up her spit. Helene was the hygienist who had been cleaning Tabby's teeth for years. She was middle-aged, toned and leathered, big-boned and busty. Tabby always felt vaguely aroused, lying helpless in her chair. Helene was a talker, would yammer on and on while she worked. Today it was a story about some girl she knew on Long Island. "So, this girl I know," Helene proceeded as she went to work in Tabby's mouth, "this girl comes over to my house, and she tells me this crazy thing. Sweet girl. She's a very sweet and innocent girl, and she's married 5 years to a man, and one day she goes through his phone. Now, this husband never lets go of that phone. It's like an extension of his arm. But this one time, he gets in the shower or whatever, and he leaves his phone out, and she goes through it, and it's all there. Everything. His whole secret life is in this phone. And it shows that not only is this guy a player, like the world's biggest sex addict, men, women, doesn't matter, he's equal opportunity, but also this girl, his wife, puts 2 and 2 and discovers that he's with like 3 or 4 different people every day. He drops the kids off at school and then gets with one, and then at lunch he's with one, and he's with another one right after work, and then there's another one at maybe a meeting he's supposed to go to or whatever. And she says it's very explicit, some of the things on his phone, and dick pics too. Dear God, I mean, to deceive someone like that, how do you do that? She held a sonic plaque blaster up to Tabby's mouth. "I'm asking you, how?" "Well, we need you sight him out or something." Tabby snorkeled over the tube. Helene shook her head, and knit her brows, and then pushed the blaster in and spent a minute or two blasting plaque. Finally, she said, "Go ahead and rinse, hon." She unhooked the vacuum, and Tabby gargled the blue water and spit it into the gleaming spittoon. "You got some pockets on your gum line, I'm not going to lie," Helene said. "Now lie back again. Open up." Tabby lay back and opened up. Helene started scraping again. "The problem with these narcissists," she said, "is they suck you in. They make you doubt everything, make you feel like you're crazy when it's them who's crazy. So I tell this girl, I tell her, you got to get this guy out of the house. But he's my husband," she says. I say, "Yeah, but you don't know him. You don't know who he is." "Ah!" Tabby screamed, splinter of pain from spine to soul. "Oh, shit. Sorry, hon, I hit one of those pockets. You okay?" Brain not working, drool, tears. Helene checked her phone while Abby recovered her being. Then she said, "But I'll still never get how this girl didn't suspect something." I even asked her, I said, "Was there not some, clue?" "Like what?" she said. And I said, "Well, did he want to have sex always in 500 positions or with you wearing a strap-on or whatever?" And she looked at me like I was from Mars, like she had no idea what I was talking about. Spit. Tabby looked numbly around the room. Then Helene said, "There's something there at tooth 19 I'm seeing, and it's not good. Loose. I give that number 19 a month before it starts barking. And you don't want that world of pain. Believe me, I know what I'm talking about. You're going to have to come back, have that one yanked." Tabby got the key from the receptionist and went down the hall to the bathroom, walking like you do after you've been mugged. She checked herself in the mirror, smiled big, like the Joker. Her exhausted teeth were cowering in her mouth. Her father stood one sink over, a phantom, washing his hands, wearing that damn leather cap. He gave her a wink. She staggered back towards Columbus Circle. Some animal rights activists were clogging the intersection at 59th and 6th, waving signs. One sign had a picture of a horse panicking in traffic and said, "I am not a machine." And then suddenly, something clicked. The memory, her wedding day, her bride, gliding closer to her on her father's arms, Louboutins clacking on the paving stones like horses' hooves, Odile's marish, rolling eyes, the look of terror sharpened by the vermilion smile pasted below a rictus of fear, wide and white-toothed, Tabby's own teeth, fresh from the bleaching trays, glowing in her mouth. She had kissed her bride then, so innocent, on the wide marble step under the watchful eyes of God, her father, and her agent. She had kissed her with her newly white teeth scraping hers. "I'm sorry, so sorry," Tabby groaned. It was a month to the day. Number 19 was barking, and Tabby was in a world of pain. She stood face to face with Odile in their kitchen, and everything oppressed her, even the thin, milky light spilling through the windows. Her mouth was on fire, but more than that, she couldn't take it anymore. The agony of indecision. She pressed on, went for broke, came clean about Carlotta, confessed everything to Odile. She was sorry, so sorry, she said again, but she had finally made a choice. Odile, steady, steel, squared up to Tabby, flashed her saintly smile, and punched her smack in the kisser. Number 19 flew out of Tabby's mouth and clattered across the linoleum as her legs buckled and she dropped to the floor. Odile slammed the door on her way out. Tabby picked up the criminal tooth and held it in the palm of her hand. It radiated righteousness like some holy relic pulled from the dirt. A week later, Tabby was sleeping on a friend's couch in Queens. Odile wasn't returning her calls. Carlotta would never speak to her again, having decided after Tabby chose her over Odile that Tabby wasn't worth what was left of her, Carlotta's youth. Tabby's dead father was still haunting the public bathrooms in Memphis. Tabby awoke to the throbbing of her phone, the second AD confirming her wardrobe fitting at 2 o'clock and a medieval weapons tutorial with the armorer at 3. She was running late and had to get a move on. She went into the bathroom and splashed water on her face and then grimaced in the mirror. Yeah, hole in my mouth could work for Biffy Brown. After the fitting and the tutorial, she would go straight to Andre's class. Her scene was up tonight, the big one with Ophelia. She stared down her reflection. What should such fellows as I do, crawling between heaven and earth? We are errant knaves all. Go thy ways to a nunnery. She gathered her scripts, laced up her boots, and hustled out of her house of secrets and into the impossibly bright afternoon. Clicked her heels, clicked her teeth, clicked the door, softly shut behind. Click.